Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to go through a variety of aspects of Governor Wolf's budget proposal. We're going to hear from healthcare, we're going to hear from business, we're going to hear from labor. In fact, coming up on the program, Patti, a representative of the business community, will join us. But now, we're delighted to have the governor's chief of staff, Kathleen McGinty. We'll get to her and my interview after these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, welcome back. Well, that was a long promo, wasn't it? But anyway, we're in the studio. Kathleen McGinty, she's the chief of staff to Governor Wolf. She was a candidate for governor herself, and we're delighted to have you back on the program. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, look, what is virtually everybody in the state who covers politics and who covers state government has been, I'll use the word fascinated with the governor's budget proposal. I use the expression big and bold and comprehensive, and it all fits together in a package. You want to raise the state income tax, raise the sales tax, raise the personal income tax. Now tell us what you want to do with that money.
Hold on. No. What we want to do is to step up and really address decisively an urgent set of problems. And those problems are the need to rebuild the middle class in Pennsylvania and rebuild our economy. You know the numbers as well as I do. We are sitting here today just about 50th in the country in job creation, the worst performance in jobs in the country. We've got a gargantuan budget deficit that the governor inherited. And after 3 credit downgrades last year, 5 during Governor Corbett's term overall, we are near the bottom in our credit worthiness. We've got to change, and it's an urgent situation. This budget aims to rebuild the middle class and address that problem in the following ways, which are ways that the public has decisively spoken in favor of. Reinvest in education with a reasonable Marcellus Shale severance tax.
5%.
Second, in terms of taxes, we're delivering the single largest property tax reduction ever. Third, let's get back in the business of rebuilding roads and bridges and developing our workforce. And fourth, we're delivering the single largest business tax cut ever. This is a plan that says to the business community, Pennsylvania is back, open for business. We'll have the best workforce out there. Let's get back to growing jobs.
The situation as it stands is, let's go through it piece by piece. You want to take an income tax hike. You want to raise the income tax from 3.07 to 3.7. That's hard to get out, 3.7. And you want to use that money to reduce the property tax. Explain just a bit of that, what that would mean for the average taxpayer homeowner in the state.
Well, look, this tax plan delivers a tax cut, again, the single largest property tax cut for homeowners ever. So on average, it's about 50%. The overall savings to homeowners north of $1,000. In more than half of the school districts across the country, we will fully max out the homeowners' homestead exemption. And for many other school districts, we'll go further than that with across-the-board property tax cuts that will help the business community as well.
And property tax reduction has been a theme in this state for 40 years. I mean, Republicans and Democrats have put measures in the legislature, some of them to reduce it, to eliminate it completely. We're talking about somewhere between 9 and 11. You get different figures. What the taxpayers pay in property tax, somewhere between 9 and 11 billion. How much in total dollars? Is this about $2.8 billion in property tax reduction?
It's about $4 billion in property tax reduction, 3.8 directly to homeowners, and another $450 million as a rebate to renters. $500 rental rebate if your income's $50,000 and lower. On business taxes, Terry, we scratch our heads and say we're a great state. We have so many assets, great workforce, great educational institutions in terms of higher ed. Why are we performing so poorly in jobs. Our corporate net income rate, the top rate, is about the highest in the country. The governor's proposal would bring us down to fourth lowest in the country, cutting that tax rate, first 40% and then 50%. That's a recipe for revving this economy again, getting us back in the game and getting us growing.
Yeah, and I'll talk to, get Dave Patti's view of that in a few minutes. But let's go to another proposal that you have. Shale tax, there's a Republican bill in the legislature, 3.2%. We're talking about a severance tax, that's the extraction of natural gas. Democratic bill has 8. You propose 5. What do you want to use that money for?
Well, first of all, we're pretty much at the same level as the Republican proposal that you're referring to, because the governor wants to hold harmless what are referred to as the impacted communities.
Oh, I get you. Lose the impact fee.
And the other programs that are supported by the impact fee. So the governor would maintain that help to those impacted communities, would maintain all of the programs that are currently funded.
And you would put that money into, you want to put into education, basic school districts as well as higher ed, about $1 billion. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is a historic investment in education, $1 billion that would enable us to double pre-K. To go from 1 in 6 kids in Pennsylvania having access to high-quality pre-K to about 1 in 3. So it's a start. It's not everything we need to do, but it's a good, solid investment there. Get us back to where we need to be, K through 12, bring those teachers back into the classroom. And the governor's restoring 50% of the money that was cut from our institutions of higher education and 75% of the money that was cut from our community colleges.
All right, we're going to run to a break. I want to get to what I think is perhaps, I don't know if Katie McGinty will agree with me, the more controversial feature is the sales tax and these exemptions and what they want to use for that. I'll get to that. And then, is there a deal? Can we make a deal? Let's make a deal. I'm going to ask the chief of staff here about where that's all going to go. We'll do that in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Well, I'm talking with Kathleen, otherwise known as Katie McGinty, right? We call, you get Katie, it's always Katie, isn't it? It's not Kathleen. Does anybody ever call you Kathleen?
Alana, get down here.
Yeah. So, it's Kathleen. Okay, Katie McGinty, Chief of Staff to Governor Wolf. All right. Now, you have to admit that what came as a surprise was this whole notion of a sales tax. Not been raised since 1968. The exemptions are, quite frankly, not popular with a lot of people. Where did you come up with those, and what do you want to do with those?
Well, the direct answer to that question is that these were Republican proposals. And what the governor is trying to do is address the urgent problems that we have with no gimmicks, finally, and to begin to have our economy growing again, but to do that in a bipartisan way. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there's no free lunch. There are pay-fors in this proposal, but those proposals come directly from Republican legislation. In fact, the governor's proposals actually are less taxing, if you will, than House and Senate Bill 76, which were introduced by senior Republican members of the legislature. Right. He's serious enough about this that he didn't want something from left field, but he got something firmly grounded in right field.
In the right field.
Introduced by Republicans.
I get it, but you do understand how when you talk about caskets and gum and candy and legal services that you're going to have an array of groups in Harrisburg who are going to go, no.
You understand how it's more than a little bit of a chuckle when you hear these how can we possibly think about these taxes? Well, maybe because we picked up your bill and we incorporated it in the governor's budget.
Well, I will say this, over the years.
I think the Oscars are coming to Harrisburg.
Is that right? Yeah. The other thing that I forgot to ask you that I wanted to ask you about has to do with the property tax. We'll go back to that for a minute. As you know, now if a school district, let's say, wants to hike a property tax above a certain level, they have to go to a referendum. They have some reasons why they don't have to do that. How would you protect the taxpayers of the state? How would you protect them from, let's say your proposal passes, from having their property taxes increase after the legislature and the administration gives them this reduction? How would you do that?
Yeah, well, listen, the governor is very clear that the days of Taj Mahal, new auditoriums or gyms or fields, have to be over, that we can't afford that. So this budget does include the toughest restrictions ever on school property taxes. First of all,
so they couldn't rise.
For 412 of 500 school districts, there'd be an absolute prohibition on any increase.
When we talk to when we have school district people, folks here from school boards and other organizations, they say that the biggest single cost driver right now are pension hikes, not Taj Mahals. I mean, you may well be right about that. What are your? I mean, you have a pension plan. Republicans in the legislature have made it clear, no discussion of taxes. Senator Corman in particular has said that. I think Senator Scarnati says that, unless you make a deal on pensions.
Well,
and
that's why
the administration has a different view about how to resolve that, right?
But that is why the governor is so serious and has made front and center a very ambitious proposal to finally solve our pension problem. And in fact, the governor's proposal is the only proposal that actually saves the taxpayers money, $10 billion by doing a couple critical things. One, you remember the old lockbox phrase, right? Well, finally says, lawmakers, keep your hands out of the pension fund and stop diverting those dollars. That's what's led to the gargantuan unfunded liability that we've got. Two, we have to take on what are truly excessive Wall Street fees.
Yeah, about $500 million. And even I think Republicans, I mean, that might be something that you could reach.
Actually, it's $720 million.
I read
and
500
that
million.
Understates it, because we have something called fund of funds as well, which adds another layer of fees that go to Wall Street, the taxpayer picking up the tab. The governor is lowering the boom on that. It's time to really address the pension problem.
All right, we're almost out of time. And hopefully you'll come back as this process unfolds and we can chat more about that. A compromise, I mean, folks in Harrisburg are saying, well, forget the June 30 deadline. We could be here in August and September. You willing to sit and wheel and deal and make compromises on these things?
Listen, I think for a proposal not to work, it would have to be unpopular, horribly partisan, or something that the public doesn't want to see.
Yeah.
But this is a proposal that education, workforce development, one, the public wants that. Two, massive tax cuts, property taxes, business taxes, the public wants that. And it pays for it through initiatives that Republicans introduced. It's a winner. Say yes.
Just say yes. All right, we're gonna watch this, and as I said, we're going to get a whole variety of views on that. Dave Patti from the PA Business Council is coming on. We'll get the Business Council's point of view. I want to thank the Chief of Staff, the Governor Wolf, for coming in, and we'll see you after this commercial break.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania, and by the Pennsylvania Coal Alliance, representing companies involved in America's most affordable, reliable energy source. To learn more, visit pacolalliance.com.
All right, Dave Patti joins me. He's the CEO of the Pennsylvania Business Council. As I promoted, Dave, we're going to get the business point of view, or a business point of view. I don't know, Dave, if anything is monolithic anymore, right? You get a variety of viewpoints.
I'm happy to speak for everybody, though.
Yeah, okay, you can speak. And he's got his bow tie on, so he's pretty hip here this morning. All right. Look, Dave, you heard the Chief of Staff. There's certainly two business taxes here that the business community has been supporting for a long time. Reduction of the corporate net income tax, the continued phase out of something called the capital stock and franchise tax, which makes my hair hurt trying to explain it, but it's a business asset tax. So I got that right?
Yep.
All right, you want that, right?
Yes, but in fairness to the governor, and I think what the Chief of Staff was trying to make sure everyone understands too is you can't kind of pick and choose. I mean, I'd love to say, okay, let's cut my tax rates over here, and maybe we'll take a little more spending on education. I like your higher ed thing, and call it a day. It balances. So capital stock and franchise, we have been working for 15 years. We've been trying to do a phase out that was supposed to take 10 years. We get rid of that because some states tax assets, some tax income. We're the only one who has taxed both. So it's time to get rid of that.
Right.
Corporate net income tax rate right now is 9.99%, so effectively 10%. We are the highest flat rate in the country, second highest marginal rate to Iowa, who has a high rate at 12. So that's got to come down. Now, what the governor's saying, though, is, hey, I want a different way to calculate what it applies to, which is called mandatory unitary combined reporting, which will really make everyone
I just call it combined reporting.
Call it combined reporting. The thing we have to understand is it makes more things taxable, more income taxable.
So you're taxing more items.
Yeah, in this case, income from operations in other states.
In other states like Delaware.
But across the country. In fact, we haven't seen the fine print yet, so maybe outside the country. Yeah.
Okay.
I think they're going to limit it to just the U.S.
On balance, that's a great summary. On balance, if that package were put before the business community as the governor's proposed it, and it was an up and down vote, what would you do? Well,
understand first, we didn't see the fine print on how combined reporting is written. Some of the companies would vote for it, some would vote against it. Because for some companies, the governor can very clearly and truly say they will save money. For other companies, because of combined reporting, they will not.
Never simple.
And it's possible, too, that you're going to have some companies that have actually a fairly small presence in Pennsylvania, huge presence elsewhere. If it pulls that income in, they may actually sell their Pennsylvania operations and just leave the state.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily revenue neutral to the state or to the companies themselves.
So you're saying it'll affect businesses differently, and right. Some will favor it and some will oppose it.
And frankly, we have not taken a position yet on his proposal in that regard because we're still trying to figure that out.
Well, I get
now,
it.
The other thing is, let's say, because I'm sure you're going to move into some things like the personal income tax and the sales tax.
I sure am.
If he doesn't get some of those things, what if he says, oh, give me combined reporting and, I don't know, 7.99 instead of the 4.99. Yeah. Well, now a lot more big companies pay, and are not winners. So if you pull something here, you push something there. And again, in fairness to him, you have to look at the whole package.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's look. You've been doing this for a long, long time. You've watched the legislatures. You've covered a number of governors. I don't remember a program this comprehensive. I mean, bits and pieces out of every governor, and it seemed to me that if you take one piece away, it sort of collapses. What's your general sense about the property tax cuts that they're proposing? And let's just talk about the business community. What are the property tax implications for the business community?
Well, we've heard mixed things, and again, a lot of, and I understand why. Look, it takes a long time to put this together and put the details out there. But I think most people have read the budget documents that are available so far, saying we don't think there's property tax relief for the business community. But also, I will tell you, in 30 years of doing this, 24 years of running business associations,
right.
No business person has ever come to me and say, the project I want you to work on is getting my property taxes
down. That's homeowners more
Never.
Than,
that's homeowners.
That's homeowners. Okay. That's an important point. I've not heard that before.
I have. And remember, in 1988, working in the state Senate as the director of the local government committee, I ran the Senate Republicans' efforts on local tax reform in a special session.
We got to run to a break. We'll talk more about that, and I want to ask Dave a few other questions relative to the business community's interest in his budget. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. and by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Business Council and by the Pennsylvania Business Council Education Foundation.
Welcome back. I'm talking with Patti from the Pennsylvania Business Council. We're getting into the governor's budget and how it affects you. In this case, we're talking about how it affects the business community. And anything that affects the business community affects what?
Affects the employees and the jobs.
Yeah.
All of the prosperity.
About 12 million people in the state, right? All right. You were talking about, we were dealing with this subject of property tax. 40 years we've been trying to get something done. Nobody can get it done. Republicans and Democrats, doesn't matter.
Well, the chief of staff talked about how some of what the governor is embracing comes from Republican ideas, as she called them. Most recently, House Bill and Senate Bill 76. But that's been a long progression. Sam Rohr had started it. He's left the legislature. Others have taken it up.
Former state house member from Berks County.
And frankly, they were bad ideas then. They're still bad ideas. I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat. That doesn't make them good.
Right.
And the business community has been united in saying this stuff doesn't work. The sales tax expansion of the base.
Right.
The governor wants to take it from 6 to 6.6 and then extend it to all kinds of things. I think we're hearing for some reason a lot about candy and gum, but let's think about things like daycare. Yeah. Let's think about things
cable
like
services.
Well, cable services that everybody pays, which is $150 cable bill, 6% is real money.
Yeah.
But
books and
tuition,
college students,
the meal plans at colleges. Yeah. But how about nursing homes? Imagine, on nursing homes. That's going to be thousands of dollars.
And we're going to hear from the nursing homes before long.
Ambulatory care. Other personal care. I was with podiatrists yesterday. It's not clear to us, but when someone goes to see their podiatrist, their specialist, is all of that care going to now be taxed?
Here's my question to you. Of all the things he's proposing, and you don't have to agree with this, that's why we're here. I think shale tax best possibility, the property tax and income next. The sales tax, I think, I don't find a way that gets done. Do you? And you may disagree that any of them get done, but of all the possibilities,
I think you're right that the shale tax is the one that has a base, that has a bipartisan base. Again, it doesn't make it a good idea. We're against it, but
I understand.
But
we're talking about whether it gets done or not.
In terms of the sales tax, the other side of that too is what will we lose to out-of-state vendors? Including legal services, accounting services. But that's why it's also a shift to the tax on small businesses with the PIT increase. I think PIT is the hardest.
You get the last word. We'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.